Hello, Luther. Welcome to this interview. My name is Alfonso on behalf of Retumba, a Mexican blog slash YouTube channel. We like to report and basically have a conversation about the new age of stream music. How is your day going so far?
I'm doing well, just, hanging in there. That our album comes out in a couple days, so I'm very much in the oh my God, it's 2 days left, or really honestly, it'll start coming people start hearing it tomorrow night on streaming, because of like as soon as it goes up in like New Zealand or Australia or whatever, people can like they can do little tricks to find out ways to
Yeah,
listen to it as soon as then. So, but yeah, I'm doing
it's
good, but I'm ready for the band-aid to be ripped off, for the bandage to come off, so we can so it can
yeah.
be out.
I think it's fair for you to premiere the record one day earlier, like worldwide premiere, right?
Yeah, I mean, so it'll hit everywhere. It's just like technically the album comes out on Friday the 11th, but yeah, it always seems like I start seeing posts from people online at like, 11 p.m. our time, where it's like someone in Australia, it's like we can
Right.
hear it in Australian Spotify already. So, uh but yeah, so I'm just really excited. It's just like I said, kind of the last we're in the last little bit of down period we have because
Mm,
the album comes out this week, and then we're rehearsing and getting ready for we start tour on November 2nd. We leave, so we're just getting ready, and then we're gonna be very busy for a while. So
nice. Are you feeling anxious? How is the mood with the band these days?
I think we're all just excited, it's like we're all very happy that this is, well, when God's Country came out, we were still all working full-time normal jobs, like just office jobs and stuff like that. And so this is the first record we've gotten to put out as like, full-time artists basically. And it's
Oh,
just it's very, I don't know, I'm just very excited. We spent a lot of we spent a lot of time writing this record. Like it was fewer months, because when we recorded God's Country, we did it like after work, like 3 nights a week, basically. So it took forever. But so it actually we spent fewer months writing it this time, but more hours were spent on it because we got to, since we quit our day jobs, we were able to still like, get together and spend all day on stuff and, work, hours and hours. So yeah, it's like I'm an anxious person, so I always have like a base level of anxiety, but it's I feel good about the record, and so far the early impressions, people seem to really like it. So um I'm more just like, I mean, I'm excited to get back on the road and play a bunch of crazy shows and just do the whole thing. So I'm looking forward to it.
well, let me go ahead and say it's a great record.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Um, and it's quite a big change from going to a band that plays or writes music in his like free time. Like it's more
Yeah.
like a glorified hobby that changed the dynamic to okay, now we are a full-time band, right?
Yeah.
Did that affect how you approach music as a whole in your own dynamics as a band?
Well, I think it's just, I mean, it's one of those things where, I think a lot of artists just wish they had more time to work on stuff. That's always the thing you come up against. It's the one thing you can't get more of. And you know what I mean? It's like, so we all work jobs or do whatever. It was never my intention to like, I love playing music, but like you said, I mean, it was a hobby. It's something I like to do, but I live in Oklahoma. It's not really a place where I could like, where being a full-time rock musician is a sensible career path. It's like, I just never
Yeah.
really, you just play music because it's fun to play and, fun to play with your friends and stuff. So I never really thought it would, you know, be what it is now. Which even it's not even like we're like a big band or anything. It's just we're it's cool that we're able to have a career now. And yeah, I don't think it necessarily changed how we wrote the second album. It's more just we learned that whoa, once you have way more time to spend on writing something, that's a very freeing thing. I mean, other places like in the US, we don't really get a lot of assistance from like the government for art and stuff. Whereas like, a lot of European countries and stuff,
Right.
they all get grants and stipends from their governments to, because those places kind of value art and
Yeah.
think it has some, not saying it's the most important thing, but it's just, it's just tough in places where there's not, as much system in places like, yeah, unless you have rich parents or you somehow get lucky, it's just really hard to be a artist full time. I mean, there's just not much money in it. So,
Yeah.
it's since we've been doing a little better with like tours and like, selling stuff out and having people come to shows and like getting some popularity, it's allowed us to kind of do this as like a full-time thing. But I mean, if I lived in Los Angeles, it costs 3, 4 times as much to live there as it does here. So I mean, that's also us living in Oklahoma has kind of made it so we're even able to do this full time because it's just, I mean, it's all catching up. Everything's getting expensive here
Yeah.
everywhere now, but it's still, gas is cheaper here, rent and mortgages are cheaper. It's just so, there's a lot of there's a lot of reasons why it's cheap here because it's kind of a shitty place to live. Uh but yeah, so it's like I said, we wrote this stuff the same way, but it was more just like, oh yeah, it turns out when you have a lot of free time to spend on the art, you can dive more into it and spend more time on it. It's not like you're just trying to piece it together when you can, when you have your spare time. It's it's very fulfilling to get to just be like, okay, this is what I do now.
Mm.
I play guitar in chat pile and now we need to, because we took it seriously, we took writing God's Country seriously and the EP seriously, but it's just like, I don't know, people are paying attention to this one because it's the second, it's like a follow up to an album that got, because God's Country got a little bit of buzz. So
A lot of
uh,
attention. I
yeah,
mean,
I mean,
from my place of the world too, you know.
yeah, it's been that's been one of the coolest things is that people from other places because it's like, oh yeah, we'll go play Texas or in Arkansas or Missouri or something, the states near us, but it's just so cool when people in Mexico or someone in, like here, like I have a friend that went to Japan and he was in a bar and they were just like playing Slaughterhouse like in the
Wow.
bar. I was just like, whoa, they're just like, it's like a metal bar, but it was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I was like, man, that is so cool. Like I just never thought ever that anyone would care that much, like that, that people beyond our friends and family would ever listen to our band, so it's pretty cool to me.
I imagine it's like it's gratification for you, right? And for the band to see those results, unexpected results.
Yeah, absolutely, because I mean, again, none of us expected to be able to do music full time. That was not, it's not like a thing where it's like we've been playing music for 20 plus years in different bands that no one's cared about it.
Oh,
But it's not like I was like, and therefore eventually I'm going to be able to do it full time. It's like, anytime you're doing stuff in art, it's kind of, I don't know, maybe some people are like, yes, I'm destined to be great or something, but I don't know. That's not how I am. That's not how any of us in the band are. It's like, you know, we're still always constantly shocked that people are like so into it. Like I think we write good stuff, but it's like, it's just the response has been really, really awesome and surprising. And especially because, yeah, it kind of just came out of nowhere for us. We just didn't really, it's just all of a sudden a couple people found us online and then now, it's like what, like Anthony Fantano or someone like finds you and then posts about it's like, oh, I guess now people just know, some people know our band at least, it's like at the end of the day, it all is still under this umbrella of like heavy and extreme stuff where it's like, you know, we're kind of known in our world, but then there's like a country, like a 22-year-old country singer in my town that has like 10 million monthly
yeah,
listeners that like anyone that I talk to will have never heard of them, but they're like magnitudes more popular than we are. So it's like it's all perspective on
yeah.
any of this stuff, anyways. So, but
Well, hence why it's always a good thing to know that a band in this sort of spectrum of music achieved that level of success, right? Because it's almost impossible in such cases, right?
yeah,
For
I mean,
example, oh yeah, please
I was
continue.
gonna say if we were attempting to become a popular band, I think we would have chosen different music to
Definitely,
write,
definitely.
So it's cool that it's connecting with people.
For example, and I don't want to sound or be pessimistic about it, but last week I was speaking with the guitarist of this band called Artificial Brain. I don't know if
That's
you're familiar.
Not only am I familiar, they're my favorite modern death metal band. I don't know them personally. I know
Oh,
so Will, their vocalist, I know he's not doing vocals with them now or
yeah.
something, but he uh he has like a metal podcast that I went on years ago when we first started the band. Like he heard about us and it was kind of funny, but we did like a little interview. But way before that, I mean, they Labyrinth Constellation, that first record is like I think it's the coolest. Like we don't sound anything like them, but they do a similar thing that or not a similar thing, but they do a thing that I like, which is that they are, they make extreme music. They're a death metal band, but like the melodies, they're able to kind of like get out of that. It's like it'll
Yeah.
be super dissonant, and then you're hearing like some really cool melody that's like really intricate and interesting, but it's not mellow death, and it's not like progressive metal. I don't know. There's just something about it that's so cool. So continue, but I can gush about Artificial Brain. They're one
No,
of my
no,
favorite
that's perfect.
bands.
So it's safe to say that their third record is one of your favorites of them.
I love all three of the records. They're so good. So I have all three on vinyl actually.
Nice,
So, but no,
nice.
I love the new one. It's super good. And Infrared Constellation, is that's the second one? Infrared Horizon, right? Infrared
Right,
Horizon.
right.
That was the one that like I actually heard that one first, and then
Went back.
I went back to Labyrinth Constellation, and I was like, holy shit, this is like I don't know. That one's even more up my alley. There's just certain songs that one that are just so cool to me.
For me too,
Um,
actually. But then the third record, I was like, whoa. For example, the sound production in the snare, how it might shift in just one
sure.
song. That thing is like very new to me. And yeah, it's a great band, great record. But anyway, I was speaking with Dan, and he mentions that before the pandemic happened, he was like a full-time musician, always on tour playing with this or other band. But then after the pandemic hits, he get a job, achieved anyway. And nowadays he's happier as a musician, having a full-time job and devoting his own time to write in his
Yeah.
free time. So it's funny how dynamics change and it makes for a good outcome.
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic definitely affected lots of bands in different ways. 'Cause, I mean, the pandemic starts when I mean, at least here, the shutdown happened in March of 2020, and we had just gotten back. Like the first week of March, we go on tour with Portrayal of Guilt, and we do 3 dates with them. And so we're like, we started to get a little bit of buzz. Like our second EP had come out, and so it was like we were about to start ramping up the touring and stuff, and we had like a whole summer tour planned, and then yeah, everything shuts down. But I think for us, weirdly too, it was like we couldn't play since we had our full-time jobs then we weren't having to rely on the band for income. Eventually I actually got laid off during COVID from my job, but I do think it was just that because of that, since we didn't have to shift to having normal jobs, we still just had them. uh I don't know, I think a lot of people during COVID, when they're stuck inside, they were just like listening to a lot of music,
Yeah.
especially a lot of young people. I think a lot of because I always just thought the only people that are going to listen to our bands are like 40-year-old noise rock guys, like which is cool, but like I'm just like, oh, the only people that are going to like this type of stuff are like the people that are into, the Jesus Lizard and Big Black and stuff like that. So it's always been cool to me when younger people are getting into it, but I think especially during COVID, a lot of younger people just stuck inside, finding music, finding hardcore and punk and metal. And so I think our fan base actually kind of grew during COVID when people were just like finding us online and stuff. But so it kind of ended up the timing of it all. It allowed it to kind of percolate and bubble up a little bit. For then when God's Country came out, we were able to kind of, we went on tour with Lingua Ignota, and that kind of showed us that that was only like 5 shows, but we went so well. We were like, oh, whoa, we could maybe just be musicians and not have to work our stupid jobs. And so that was kind of the turning point. It's like is that we kind of point to is doing that tour with her because it was so cool. But yeah, it's all been crazy. I'm still shocked about a lot of it. So I'm the youngest person in the band. I'm 34. Everyone else is 39 or 40 or older. And so we all know, I don't know. We know nothing lasts forever. And we've all been friends for a long time. Our bassist and drummer are brothers, and so it's like we're all close and stuff, but it's so I'm not saying so the band's about to break up or anything. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just like uh we just know that the music industry is fickle, and people are riding with Chat Pile a little bit right now, but we're all who's eventually every band gets washed up, you know what I mean? So it's like we know that. I feel like if we were younger, it would be easier just to be like, this is gonna last forever, and like put all your eggs in the basket, but it's like, I don't know. It's scary to quit your normal job to do art full time and lose health insurance and lose like some of the safety nets that you get with jobs here, just to like go do this stuff. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm loving it right now, but you know.
So we are basically discussing one of my questions, or the things that I had in my mind about Chatpile. Because when you get rid of the okay, we are a commercial band factor in your own process, and approach it from like a more passion side or artistic side, I don't know how to put it. Um, how do you perceive the industry now that you have like somewhat are being immersed into this circuit? Is it difficult
Yeah.
to navigate for a new underground band?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very thankful we have Stin, our bass player. He basically acts as our manager too, and like for me, I'm just not the type of person where if I was in charge of Chatpile, like if I was the person that if Chatpile falls apart, if I'm not doing the logistics, like we would have not been a band after the first two
Right.
months. Because that's kind of how it's always been with bands I'm in. Whenever it's like kind of my idea, it's like, you jam and then stuff fizzles out and stuff. But Stin, he is good at committing to stuff. And
Mm.
so and I'm good at flaking on stuff. So the two of us kind of started the band together. I don't know. We have a good push and pull, him and I. But I guess I just bring it up to say it's just like it's nice to have him to kind of be kind of the insulator there between. It's like he ends up dealing with a lot of the industry stuff, but I see it when we go to fests and stuff, or like you do press or whatever. But for us, it's been pretty okay for us. I mean, basically now I just have more perspective into like how little money everyone makes, and just because you've heard of a band, it's like
Right.
I had a very skewed perspective on, I think everyone does. It's like, you hear of certain bands, I'm a pretty big music nerd, so I know a lot of bands and stuff, and it's like you feel like you've heard of something. It's like, oh well, if I've heard of it, that must mean they're like, they're famous or something, or but it's like,
They are getting rich.
the internet has really equalized a lot of stuff with that and just made it so it's like, I don't know, the world's a lot smaller now because of it. So it's I don't know, it is that is one thing where it's like, you always hear about how you make money on tour and stuff, and the record industry isn't what it used to be. But I mean, that's pretty true. That is what my experience has been now, is that like, in order for this to be, at least in a country like the US, like I said, that doesn't, if you're gonna make a, we live in a society, you have to have money in order to function. So, and like, unless you have someone funding you, like I said earlier, it's like either you have to have a real job, or you have to be playing enough shows to where you're, making enough to support for, like, I'm married. Three of the people in Chat Pile are married, and the other person's in a long-term relationship. So it's like, it's kind of a scary proposition to, I mentioned it earlier, but just to just like jump full force into being professional weird music
Right.
makers, because it's not like, oh
Right.
yeah, we made this really successful pop song, and now if like, of course we got to go do it. It's just like, it's still a kind of a tall order, even though we've gotten popularity in our scene. It's like you said, I mean, it is not the most accessible music, so there is a little bit of scariness there where you're just like, well, I
It's
hope
weird.
I
It's
hope
weird.
people like the I hope people like the upsetting music for long enough to where I can do this for a little while. But uh
Actually,
yeah,
one of my favorite songs from this record is the second one. I am forgetting the name right now,
shame.
but I Shame, right. But that one is like the sickest song on the album for me. Um,
Thank you.
Vocally, sounds toxic. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like almost the most distinctive one track on the record. Am I correct
Yeah,
to assess that?
I think it's like it was the one that because kind of when it starts, it almost sounds like a weird indie rock song or something, and by the time it gets to the end, like he's doing death metal growls and like a black metal scream over it. So it's like I don't know. I really like that song as like a mix of or like a good example of like trying to take extreme music and like the indie rock or the melodic stuff that we like and kind of fusing them together into I mean, I'm not saying that it sounds like nothing anyone's heard before because you know everyone you could hear influences in everything people make. It's hard to make something truly unique now, but I hope when people hear our mix of what we're blending these things that it comes off as somewhat unique to them because I there's just a lot of type we like a lot of different stuff in the band. I know a lot of bands say that, but it's like it's true and it's like I know we're like a noise rock band or whatever, or a sludge metal band, but it's like, I don't know. If I wanna, like the song Milk of Human Kindness on this album is like the closest we've gotten to just like fully writing an indie rock song, probably. And I really love that song on this record. And, we're still playing it in drop A on like super low tune, super distorted. So it's that's kind of the secret of this band is that as long as you're playing it super low tuned and on our stupid gear, you can kind of play these more, you know, these melodies and riffs and stuff that maybe people would associate with like prettier music, but you can kind of sneak that stuff in there when it's, when you're on the drop A guitar. But yeah, no,
Uh,
Shame. I like Shame. That one's a fun one. It's a
yeah,
depressing song, but it's
uh,
not really fun, but
and I definitely can see an influence of artificial brain there. If I, maybe overthink some stuff, like it's
I
not
mean
not
that
noisy.
yeah, that and I would say the final track on the record, No Way Out, I'm kind of there's a couple of guitar parts where I'm kind of it's like in my mind I'm doing like the most dumbed down version of like Krallice or Artificial Brain or Mama Leak. They're on our label. Like the kind of just like weird, plucky, spacey chords and leads that are maybe I don't know. I do some of the weirder shapes that I do on that song on No Way Out, and so that's I'm kind of leaning into that. But again, it's like if someone listens to that and they've heard Artificial Brain and they've never heard us, they're gonna listen to that song and be like, "This sounds nothing like that." But you know what I mean? It's like you
It
pull
makes sense.
influences in different ways, though. It's you get inspired by a way of playing and use your own tools to make it your own.
Um, I want to understand something. Let's see if I can articulate it correctly. Okay. Between these things that you're describing, you mentioned dumb it down, like the start, the
Sure. Yeah.
shapes and forms of your style of playing. But it's complex, your music, the way you articulate stuff, but at the same time, the delivery is like very direct, very straightforward. So
Hmm.
between being like having or being like meticulous in your own process, but create a brand or a sound that sounds dumb or simple, but again, you can instantly recognize one of your songs because of the style of playing and repetition and such.
Yeah.
Is it hard to continue on that path as you became, as you evolve as a band, let's say?
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that helps is just that since the way we write is a lot through improv and through just like jamming, there isn't a single chat pile song that's like, I wrote a whole song and then brought it into practice. It was like, here guys, here's the song we're all playing. Like we don't, when the instrumentals are being written, where it's all very, we're jamming it 1,000 times, and then eventually the instrumentals get done, and we present it to Ray, and then he has like a list of things that he wants to write about, and he kind of like sees which ones fit with the instrumentals we have, and uh, but I don't know, it's just it's since we just write in the same way, even on this one, like I said, like the biggest difference this time has just been time, like I said earlier. So it's just
Mm.
like since we write in the same way a lot, and like I said, also since we're a little older, it's like the good thing about people not caring about your band until you're in your 30s and 40s is that I've been writing riffs since I was like 13, our bassist has been writing riffs since he was like 13, you know what I mean? So it's like I'm not, we still have, I'm not worried about that part of it yet, where it's like, especially with like that, having like older stuff to pull from. And then just naturally, when you write through jamming and improv, it's like, I don't know, it's there, there's a point when those songs don't exist. And then eventually you just snatch them out of the air kind of and find the cool stuff. And then they get turned into songs. So it's just, I don't know, sometimes that seem I mean I could see ourselves running out of ideas eventually, but I think when you come from a place of like it's always through collaboration, that's kind of a more endless well than just having everything be like when it's like one person who's writing all the music, because a lot of bands are like very there's like a strong personality that's like really writing everything, and that's just not really how our band is. So it kind of helps with it all being cohesive in that way. And again, like I said, us being older, I think it just kind of lets us have more to pull from. So it'll be a while till we're out of Chat Piley riffs. Uh,
Cat Piley raves.
yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And when you are when the way you compose is like very collaborative and exist in the spontaneity of the moment. How do you identify the mood of the record or the personality of the second record? Like, okay, this is our direction. We should explore more of that.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, so I know when we first started, like in like it was really December when we were like, okay, this is when we're starting to really work on the rep, because we had worked on Funny Man and we had been playing that, but it was like December. It's like we're starting for real, right? Like to spend a lot of time on it. And I know I wanted to. I know a lot of bands say this, but it's like I wanted the second record to maybe be a little heavier, have like heavier moments on it. But we wanted to indulge both heavier stuff and more melodic stuff. And I know we wanted to avoid having another like 9 minute long closer. Like we wanted kind of the songs to
Mm,
maybe be a little bit more to the point. And we definitely just wanted things to like we all like hooks in songs, and so we wanted there to be, if it's a vocal part or a guitar part, like every song needed to have like some moment in it where you're like, oh, that's a song that does that thing or whatever. And so uh you know then you just start writing a bunch of stuff and seeing what stuff sounds cool. And I noticed when we were writing this one that we kept writing stuff that sounded a little like maybe gothier than the last record. That's
mm,
what was kind of coming out, especially in like the more melodic parts, that we were just kind of leaning into that gothy style of goth rock or death rock or whatever on some of these songs. But uh yeah, it's kind of you see the songs and the stuff that you have. And like I said, there was a few that didn't make the cut on this that will get turned into other songs, or maybe there'll be an album of three song, maybe it'll be EP stuff. But it's just you look at what you have. And then we we were like, I don't know, instrumentally at least they were just very getting, I don't know, they were kind of showing a cohesion and like this is the type of vibe we're going for. And Reagan, he was completing lyrics as we were going. So it wasn't like we finished the whole album of instrumentals and then presented it to him. It's like we'd finish one and then give it to him and he'd start. So it's like we were, kind of going back and forth, just finishing one and starting a new one and just going back and forth. And as that was starting to make it take shape a little bit more. And yeah, at the end of the day, we had those 10 songs where like these ones go together. They, we worked on the sequencing to make sure the track, because to some people that doesn't matter. A lot of people just listen to stuff on shuffle, or they're going to find the three songs they like on the record, and which I do a lot too. I mean, I just listen to a shuffled playlist in my car a lot, but you
I
know,
don't. I don't.
yeah, but still, we're very specifically, thinking about this track sequencing. Like, it is a record, it's an album. So it's like, it is meant to be listened to all 10 tracks in a row from start to finish in a specific order. They go into each other,
Yeah.
maybe not completely, but, so that is definitely something that, like I said, as you're getting these selections of songs, it's like you start thinking about, oh, this one sounds like a track one, this one sounds like a final track, or like this one would make a lot of sense going before this one. And so yeah, we start doing it like that. And again, just having a lot of more time to work on it, it lets you kind of indulge those paths a little bit more and like think a little bit harder about, spend more time just like kind of getting in the weeds. on that stuff a little bit, and but yeah, it was actually a lot easier to write this record than God's Country, just because again, having time to spend on it, it just makes it a lot easier than we have 2 hours after work to
Uh,
work on this, and then I have to wake up to go to work again the next day. So
and also your audience has something to expect, and you know more or less what to deliver to that audience, right?
yeah, I mean,
Mm,
we definitely, you said it earlier, and that's was one of my favorite compliments anyone ever gives us is that when they say, they can just hear a song of ours and it sounds like a chat pile song. Like I always love that when it's like, you hear bands that are like influenced by the Deftones. You're like, oh, that might sound like Deftones or something, but it's like whenever you actually hear them, it's like it's unmistakable. It's like there might be bands that sound like them, but when you actually hear them, you know what I mean?
yeah.
So that's always if we've achieved that at all, where it's like someone could just hear a little bit of it and they're like, oh, that's definitely like a chat pile song, then that's the goal. I feel like that's awesome.
And actually, this is what amazes me about this record and about Child Pile as a whole. Um, it almost sounds like you guys are not even trying sometimes, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, we are at the funny thing is because we're I'm not like a shredder on guitar or like a
yeah.
scales guy, so it's like we're very much at the limits of our abilities, I feel like on some of these songs, where it's like especially like on a couple of these on the record on like tape or New World, there's just like moments where it's like, damn, why did we write it like this? I have to do so much. I'm like doing way more pedal stuff on this record, and it's fun, but I'm just like, wow, we made these songs a little more. I have a little bit more to do on a lot of these. Specifically, the guitar work is a little more intricate on this one. So
Yeah, yeah. And just to clarify, to me, the distinction, one of the distinctions between a good and a bad record is the sequencing of the track list,
mm,
you know, the arc of the
I agree.
music or the whole album. I always start a record from the first song. I may not have enough time to finish it, but
Yeah,
next time it always go with the first song.
yeah,
And in this case with Cool World, I identify three moods on the record, and the first, middle, and last part. And the last part is it was actually like surprising to me because I didn't expect to find like a more I don't want to say sentimental sound in your sound,
I
but
think I
because
understand what you're saying though.
you
Yeah,
know
it's a little more melancholy towards the
melancholic,
end.
yeah.
Yeah, towards the end of the record.
And the topics that you discuss, I mean, it is mentioned on the press. You go from the micro to the macro scale of things, right?
Yeah,
And if the past record was like pissed off, and like angry and so forth and so on and so forth, the this one has to be angrier, has to be m m more moody, I would say.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
that is surprising to find on this record.
yeah, I definitely think God's Country, that's like the you're depressed and going insane record. And this one is the uh you're extremely mad, you're furious and going insane is kind of this one. It's like this one is definitely because like I said, Ray, he writes all the lyrics, so we give very little input to that. Like we all trust each other to write good stuff. And so, I always loved what he comes up with. But yeah, it's I don't know. I'm trying to kind of lost my train of thought on that where I'm going with that, but it is like yeah, or I guess like no, I'm going. Uh, God's Country it definitely was just like more about just like they're kind of the region we live in and stuff. And on Cool World, as like the lyrics were coming together, we were just a lot's going on in the world right now, and we're still inspired by horror movies. There's songs on this record that are very inspired by specific movies and stuff, but it's also inspired by real world stuff that it's it's a weird time to be alive right now. And so it's yeah, I don't know, this one definitely is kind of gotten, I don't want to say more broad, but it is just like we're just kind of talking about violence in all these different ways, it like people inflicted on each other or on themselves, like some songs are still more like kind of like Mask, that one's a little more self-deprecating at least, or like, kind of like self-loathing, and some of it's like very much more angrier and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's, again, since we don't give Ray a lot of input on what to do, I always, I'm a fan of what he does too. I just write the guitar and this, I'm contributing instrumentals, but it's like, uh, it's always awesome to me whenever we present it to him and then he comes up with something that's like, I had no idea that he was going to do. He's a very unique vocalist. So it's very cool to me to see what he comes up with, because he's not a big like extreme music listener. He doesn't listen to a lot of metal and super heavy stuff. So I think he brings like a pretty cool spin to it. And so that's always like, yeah, whenever we whenever I hear like the first demos that because we record everything ourselves. Whenever it gets posted in our little group chat, I like see what they worked on like the
Yeah.
vocal days, and I'm like, oh hell yeah, this is like, especially on this record, it's like it was. I don't know. I'd hear a version and it'd be like no notes, man. You're just, I don't know. I think he did a really good job on this one, and it was coming a lot quicker too. On God's Country, it took, like I've mentioned a couple times, but it was a little just harder to just get to make that record and just get it done. And this one, it was cool just to be able to, I don't know, just to kind of dig into it. And I think it helped him as well. Like he was able just to like, I mean, there was a point where he was like, we were we hadn't written enough instrumentals for him yet. Like he had already
Mm,
finished vocals for
wow.
all the songs that we got. And so it's like it was the like a moment, it's like, damn, we have fallen behind. He's
Right.
ahead. So which is awesome, because yeah, when God's Country was done, it pretty much was, we finished all of the instrumentals and presented the whole thing to him. So
So
yeah.
so th this actually made me curious. Do you have to make song? Did you have to make songs to fill out the lyrics with the lyrics in mind?
No, so basically on this record, or like I said, even the last one, it's like we sometimes he'll like, because he'll be at our practices when we're writing, he'll be like, "Hey, you guys should do this part like twice as long, so I have more space there," or
Ah,
you
oh, I
or you
see.
sh you should do this part, cut this part so I can come in. But most of the time, he just lets us do what we think sounds cool, and then he'll be like, "Man, that sounds cool," or whatever, and then
Nice.
eventually, and then he'll maybe get some ideas for stuff he wants to do. But then, yeah, it's once the instrumental is finished, then that's when any of the real like lyric writing
So
happens.
it's actually like a very conscious process, how it takes shapes the whole song or the next and not yeah yeah.
Yeah. If they can just bang it out, then they can just knock out stuff. So it's like when you are collaborating like we do, and like it can take longer, because especially when you're writing through jamming through improv, it's like, we'll get together and just basically play the same riff for like 5 hours and it sucks. And you know what I mean? And it's like you're playing bad notes that don't sound good, trying to find, and it's like eventually I'll play one little thing that sounds cool. And then
Yeah.
we get like a 40-second clip, that we record that sounds like that's the thing worth saving. And then you just work on that the next day. So it's it's not the fastest and most streamlined way to write music, but it is definitely the only way we know how, and will and I think will be how we continue to write music. So
I want to point out that the three singles so far, so well, the three singles of this record somehow show these three modes on the record that I somehow perceive. And what I appreciate is like how unexpected it is, like the curve of the record. For example, from the first to the third song, I don't know actually what to expect next, because it all changes. Um, and the previous record, God's Country, it's like was like your breakthrough record. It's very
mhm.
famous now in the community, and it's known also by like this phrase, why, right? Why?
Mhm.
Why?
Yeah.
And the new record opens up with this statement of I am dog now.
Yeah.
So why? Do you have
So
any answer for that?
for that song, I mean, that is one where, again, since Ray wrote the lyrics, I know he has said in other press stuff that that song is directly inspired by The Social Contract by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a French novel, um, kind of about how when people aren't treated like humans, they don't need to act like humans, kind of. So it's very much a breakdown of society, breaking the like it and No Way Out, the final song, kind of mirror each other, and that they're the two bleakest songs on the record. Like despite the middle content of the record, I feel like those are the two most like hopeless songs are I Am Dog Now and No Way Out, just because I mean it's basically those are two of the most just like having a breakdown about I mean the end of No Way Out, he's just screaming no escape and no way out over and over again. And I'm dog now. He's talking about trash mouth, veins full of garbage, talking about being filled up with like microplastics. You can't
Yeah,
escape this world, and it's like, you know, I think, yeah, especially that song or I Am Dog Now. I mean, when we were once we wrote it, that was one where it's like, I don't know, it just kind of made sense as a track one. When we had eventually added on the kind of like there's like a weird kind of dreamy sample thing that Stin, our bassist, made. He did like analog tape loops and all kinds of cool stuff to make that 10-second little kind of it almost sounds like angel choir or something coming in, but and then just going straight into it's also like the most straight up noise rock song on the record, I would say, is I Am Dog
definitely.
Now. It's the most like of that 90s kind of style. And I think that song's working title because whenever we're writing stuff, there'll be like working titles for songs, so they don't have song or they don't have lyrics or whatever. I think that one was just called noise rock. So
Oh,
because it was so straightforward with that type of thing. But yeah, I that was one where we finished the instrumental and I had no idea what Ray was going to do with vocals. And then like that was just so awesome because it's like, I don't, it's not like he records it and then he gives me a lyric sheet.
mm,
I'm still like hearing it the first time and then I'll ask him, because certain parts, on the demos, it's not as clear or whatever. But that was just one where when I'm hearing him screaming, I am dog now over this, I was like, yeah, dude, this is great. Like, you nailed it. And then when he's like telling me about what the song's actually about and stuff, and I'm like reading the lyrics, I don't know. It definitely is one of the most, it sets kind of the tone of this is gonna be like kind of an angry record, you
yeah,
know. And going into the next song, Shame, where it's like very much probably the most overt political song on the record. Different than Why though, where Why is very um you know it's not very verbose. There's not a lot of words in Why. There's it's a lot of repeating the same lines in Why. And Shame is much more, he's saying a lot of stuff in those verses. There's it's a little more wordy. Um,
I need
but yeah,
to see the lyrics because I didn't have access. I can't quite understand the whole dialogue, but yeah.
yeah, for sure. There'll be uh as stuff comes, I think there'll be up on our Bandcamp and stuff because
Oh,
it's one of those things where people go on like Genius and add lyrics, but sometimes they're wrong. But I
yeah.
think the lyrics should be correct on our Bandcamp for
Actually,
anyone.
I'm reading the lyrics on Bandcamp right now
Yes.
because one of
At
my
least
favorite. Yeah, please
I was gonna
continue.
say at least the lyrics for Funny Man, Mask, and Dog will be up. But I think maybe all of the lyrics are up for the record on Bandcamp, maybe. But
I
uh
wanted to add like one of my favorites line is exactly that one. Remember, everyone bleeds. I am Doug
yeah,
now. I am. So in my head, I pictured like some sort of correlation with the topics of why, the homelessness, because dogs, are the most sort of homeless animal on the planet.
sure.
And in my head, it was like, okay, it makes sense, right? And I love dogs. I am a huge fan of dogs, and just to see like just to be aware of dogs living in the street and suffering, it somehow, and this is weird or may sound weird, but like made me empathize a little bit more with homeless people.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's, you know, almost people all over the world are kind of discarded and looked down on by people. And yeah, it is one of those things. It's like, stray animals are treated the same way as well in a lot of ways. And I mean, sometimes people treat stray animals better than they treat homeless people.
That's true.
Um, but yeah, I am dog. I mean, that's not too far off of a reading because I mean, like I said, being about like, I mean, I've never read The Social Contract, but it is just very much, just with talking with Ray about that song. I mean, when I said earlier, it's kind of a song about when you're not treated like a human, you don't have to act like one, where it's like, he's talking about, remember everyone bleeds. It's kind of about like a person who's not being treated with dignity, kind of going crazy and eventually becoming violent, basically. It's like this person in the song maybe has been forced by whatever society, whatever, to they're on their last rope. They're he says in the song, he's like, no cage, nowhere to go at all.
Exactly.
I really like that line too. And uh yeah, I think you're spot on too with with the selection of the three singles we put out. I thought was a good mix of the vibes on the record, where it's like Dog is the most like overtly angry, and then Mask is like the more sad, kind of melancholy one, and then Funny Man is kind of like the weird one, the more like
Yeah, exactly.
angular and kind of yeah, that one's has the kind of circusy verse part to it and stuff. So I thought it was a good mix of, if you listen to the three singles, you should hopefully get a picture of what this album is going to sound like.
Yeah,
So
and you decide to leave Shame as a surprise because
yeah, that was one that
it
was,
could
it
be
could
a
have been a
successful single.
Yeah, because it's one of the more melodic ones, and that was one that we talked about being a single, but it was I wanted that, like, because Frownland was also a contender. I really like that one, and
Mm,
I think the instrumental is pretty catchy, but you know, I think we wrote 10 strong songs, so it was nice to have we had a conversation about which songs to even pick as a single, because I'm sure sometimes you're writing a record, it's like, oh well, here are the two clear best songs on the record, so they have to be singles, where it's like on this one, I didn't think it was like I mean, Funny Man, I felt like we had a pretty strong idea that that was gonna have to be a single. Just the way that, I don't know, we really liked playing it, and it just felt like it should be. It's a good. I think it's just a good encapsulation of what our band sounds like. Is Funny Man. Honestly, I feel like if people are just gonna listen to one song off the record to get an idea of what we sound like, I would probably pick that one. I would
mm,
think, but.
makes sense. Makes sense. Since you mentioned Mama Leak, I've
mm,
been wanting to ask you what did you think of their newest records?
I love it. They're like one of my
Vida Blue.
Vita Blue, yeah, it's so cool. Their music is so like I love what we're writing in Chat Pile, but like that's always been like a kind of a goal of mine, is I'd love to be in some sort of sprawling, crazy, experimental jazz metal thing. It's like that music seems so hard to write, and it's so layered and dense, and like I think our music can be a little complicated sometimes, but it's like compared to I mean, it's completely different stuff. We're all going for completely different things, but it's like I just can't even imagine how they write those records. And Vita Blue is amazing. Diner Coffee is like one of my favorite guitar records of the decade. It's just so interesting personally. Uh, so we're gonna play some shows with them in
Nice.
February. Uh, or no, that's this tour in November coming up. So I'm really excited because they don't play live a lot, and they're like very mysterious. They all wear masks and are anonymous, and so we've met a couple of them and can confirm that they're real people and exist. But they're awesome. They're, like I said, just very impressive stuff to me. And they were a reason when the Flinzer reached out to us before God's Country came out, when they like wanted us to join the label. And uh that was one that myself and Reagan, especially, we were listening to Come and See that, because that was their most recent record, was Come and See. And it was so cool. We're like, okay, well, if this is the type of music that the Flinzer's putting out, then like that is interesting to me. Because other than like Have a Nice Life, I didn't really know a lot of the bands on the Flinzer
Mm,
before, other than like, because they put out some Kaio Dot stuff back in the day. Um, but so like Mama Leak was one that really stood out to me, and it like kind of sold us on the record label even. So
yeah. For me, what amazes me about Mama League is the place they are now as a band with their sound. Like really unexpected. I couldn't have guessed or imagine how they sound now. Do you imagine Chad Pyle going on an unexpected direction in the future?
Uh,
Will you allow it?
yes, I think that at the end of the day, I mean, I said it earlier, we can only, I write really in one way, and like, uh, it's fun to experiment with stuff, and we want to keep doing stuff like that. We actually were just talking today about how we have an idea to do kind of like a not it's like an EP that's more of like an experimental thing where
Mm,
there's another local musician here in town that does really cool like American primitivism, like John Fahey, like weird nylon string, intricate guitar stuff. So we're like stuff like that would be really cool to do. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like I'm not a virtuoso, and I love, and so does Sten. Our bassist, like we both love song structure. Like we're kind of just
mm,
nerds for that type of stuff, and just like thinking about like what makes a successful song, and it's like the puzzle of songwriting and stuff like that. And it's really fun to try and take these influences from extreme stuff and like turn it into a 3.5 minute catchy song and have it not be like a shitty pop version of a metal song, like I think that
right.
there's just because something like catchy can kind of be a bad word when it comes to metal sometimes and stuff, because it's like, oh, if it's too catchy, if it's too mainstream, it loses some of the like the the abrasiveness, some of the outsiderness of it. But it's like, I don't know, I really like extreme music and upsetting stuff, and I really like memorable catchy songs. So it's
Yeah,
like, and that is something that we share the band, so it's like that's always been, so it'll be hard for us to not like write in that way. But we're definitely a band where it's like, if we have an idea and it's, we're thinking it sounds cool, we'll indulge it for sure. So I could definitely see us, again, as we have more time to work on stuff, and if we do eventually go to like a studio, I could see us expanding more and stuff. I would like to on the next record have some features that would be cool. I think that would be interesting, not go too overboard, but it'd be cool to bring other people in or unexpected uh other influences in on stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like this is the type of music I like. I like noise rock and post hardcore and sludge and uh goth rock and stuff. So it's like that's the type of stuff I want to play and write. That's the kind of stuff I listen to. So it kind of it's going to be hard for me. It'd be hard for me to write something so completely like I don't think we'll make an album that sounds like a Mama Leak album. It's just I
nah,
don't know if we could get that sprawling, because it's just I don't know. It's so cool though. I'm very like uh I don't know. Their music is just very interesting to me in a way that a lot of guitar music, frankly, is just not very interesting to me anymore.
right,
So,
right.
but
Um, I am curious as to why would the band, for example, the chat file that you mentioned that maybe in the future you make an experimental EP, why would the band experiment? Meaning, uh, sorry, my dog I think is fighting on
okay,
the other room, and it distracted me because
it's okay.
I hear it cry. Yeah, now it stopped. Has stopped. Let me repeat the question, okay, or my comment.
Sure.
I'm curious as to why would the band experiment in order to achieve what? Like expand their knowledge, their vocabulary, or what do you think awaits Chat Pile after such experimental EP?
I don't know. I mean, when we did that soundtrack for this indie movie called Tin Killer, and we actually recorded and did all that right before we worked on God's Country. So it came out after God's Country, but we were like making a lot more of this soundscape, ambient
Hmm,
kind of experimental stuff on that. And that definitely kind of influenced for sure there's like some interstitial stuff, or like on God's Country there's the second to last track, I Don't Care If I Burn, which is kind of like a spoken word piece almost, with like just very minimal sounds behind it. And that was like definitely more influenced by us working on that soundtrack. But at the end of the day, it's just I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where it's like I said, we have our this friend who we wanted to jam with, and just he's has a really cool style that's like not anything like us, because he's doing like this weird kind of experimental guitar music, like acoustic instrumental music. And so we're just like, I don't know, that just sounds fun. I mean, for
fun.
us, for real, I mean, that's kind of what it's just like. We're all friends, and so that just sounds like a good time, smoking some weed and
I see
just
now. I see
playing
it
music
now.
with friends. And then if
Getting
yeah,
weird.
if you yeah, being weird. And if you find something cool and it's like, yeah, I would hope that, because everything you do and everything in your life influences you, and your decisions you make and the stuff you make. And so I'd hope that, yeah, we maybe we do some experimental thing with our buddy and then, you know, that could change some stuff in our brains to how we write the next, you know what I mean? So it's all just at the end of the day, it's just, we started this band to because it's fun to play, it's fun to play music, and it had been a little while since any of us were in bands. And so if it's not fun, it's like, because I know we don't necessarily make the most fun music, because it
Right.
is like depressing. So fun's a weird word to use, but it's like
It's fun
that
for
is,
you.
yeah, but that is the thing. It's just like, if you play any instrument, I mean, maybe fun's not the right word, like fulfilling. It is just like
For fun.
fulfilling to play. And it is enjoyable to like play my instrument and stuff. So just jamming with friends and stuff is very fun. And just that's a thing. I would rather spend my time hanging out over there with a group of people, jamming and playing music, and rather than just
Mm,
watching TV or whatever. So
yeah,
that's
I
just
see.
yeah. So that's kind of where it comes from.
I have I have some comments from your fans over here in
Mm,
our audience. I mentioned that I was about to talk with you. Sorry, my English is so bad today.
oh, it's okay.
Apologize. And although these comments are in Spanish, I will try to translate it for you, okay?
Sure, sure.
Not necessarily serious comments, just you understand, right?
Yeah.
So one is from Fito. He says in Spanish, a la verga, está bien atravesado su música, which sort of means, fuck, your music is so fucked up, basically. Uh, Another comment is asking for the name of your dealer. Who is your dealer?
Well,
Uh,
weed is legal in Oklahoma, so
right.
uh so yeah, the state of Oklahoma.
You can find it everywhere, right?
It's crazy here now. I mean, I know that like because it's not federally legal in the US. It's just, like like some states have medical and some have recreational, but like Oklahoma, it's all medical. But for
Mm,
some reason, it's like the loosest laws with medical. So you buy a card for $200 basically. It's basically just a grift, like to get $200. It's honestly a way to keep it's just a punitive thing to punish poor people is really what it is. It's like, oh, you have to have $200 to smoke weed or it's still a crime. But a lot of the weed industry from California and Colorado moved to Oklahoma because we have such weird like lax laws on like the actual like manufacturing and production. So
mm,
there's actually more dispensaries in Oklahoma than California and Colorado combined. It's not even like per capita. It's like literally there's like there's like something crazy like 5 or 6 thousand dispensaries in Oklahoma, which makes no sense. We are not a heavily populated state. So that's all to say there's a lot of weed in Oklahoma right now. So
so people is really taking advantage of this legal loophole,
kind
right?
of it's
At the
like
moment.
it's because it is cheaper here, like I said earlier. So it's like especially compared to Colorado and California, which are two of the more expensive places to live in the US. So it's like these companies can come to Oklahoma where farmland is cheaper, where warehouse space is cheaper, where taxes are lower, for better and for worse. So it's just like, uh it is strange how Oklahoma has now kind of become like the Wild West of weed again, where it's I don't know, it's very strange, but it makes living here a little easier. If we didn't have that in Oklahoma, it was just like I don't know. I'm think about like people that live in like Indiana in the United States. I don't know. That's probably not going to mean much, but it's like that. That's just like wow, a place that's exactly like here, but it's like only white people and there's no weed. It seems like the worst place on earth. So it can always be worse somewhere where you live.
So it's safe to say or assume that um, you approve with smoking on the creative process
I mean, yeah, it is such a fundamental process of
in chat pile.
this band and honestly every band. I mean, I I've for the most part I can't be super stoned and play shows. I have to, be at least in a little clear. And we're not big drinkers in our band. We don't drink a lot, so that helps. I would say for any band out there, my
The co
advice to you
the
is
combination it's
don't drink,
not good.
don't drink. Yeah, I mean, also maybe don't smoke weed, but I would just say, especially a one-way ticket to having your band break up is for all of you to be drunks. So
Right.
uh, take it a little easy on the alcohol because it's so easy to have things go wrong with that. But yes, when we write, I mean, yes, it is a lot. There's a lot of weed being smoked when we are. I mean, in
Wait,
order to
yes.
yes, in order to, I mean, how else are you going to play one riff for 5 hours without going insane? You kind of have to be a little stoned to make that style of writing work, I think, or else you would just get
And
bored.
not challenge your own memory, right? Afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel like it's kind of crazy because it's like it is kind of like weight training a little bit like that. It's like, oh, if I can remember all this stuff after we smoked a bunch of weed, I hope it's locked into my brain. So uh but yeah, like I said, it's a little harder when you're getting on stage, and that's when it's like, I love playing and I get excited, but that's when you can go from I'm excited to play to I'm now having a panic attack and I'm anxious to play. So that's there's a
Yeah.
fine line between excitement and anxiousness. So
And do you smoke on a daily basis, or have you tried like start smoke once a week, let's say?
it's I've gone through different periods in my life. I mean, I used to be a heavy cigarette smoker. I smoked
Mm,
cigarettes for 18 years, so I quit smoking cigarettes at the beginning of COVID. And honestly, with weed being legal here, switching to weed has helped stay off of cigarettes for me. But yeah, I mostly, yeah, am an everyday smoker. But I
nice.
also, when we go on tour and stuff, it's easy to take breaks or, because like we'll go, not every place is, you have to be smart. We're not trying to go to jail on
Yeah,
tour.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like, in the States where it's legal, you do it and you don't when it isn't. And, uh, but yeah, it is one of those things where, I actually, when I was in my teenage years, I had issues with hard drugs, and so I've been to long-term drug treatment before. I went to rehab for an entire year when I was
Oh,
17. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it is a thing that helps me sleep and it helps me I know for sure I'd be able to write music without it. It's not I'm not one of those people. It's like I have to have it in order to
yeah,
write
yeah.
music. It's more just like I kind of have to have it or else I can't sleep
Mm.
or and I have no appetite. So I just lose a shitload of weight and can't sleep. And so it helps me for that. It's medicine.
I can relate to that.
Technically.
Definitely. I can relate to that.
How
Um,
is it in Mexico with that? I mean, I know it's a whole other
it's
thing out there. Yeah,
it's illegal,
I know
you
it's
know.
illegal. Yeah, but
So
yeah,
you well, in my case, I get it from a friend. Like he has his own plans, and
yeah. That's just how it was here for forever, and that's still how it is everywhere else in the country where
yeah,
it's not legal. But I hope in more it's not worldwide. It's like Canada, some of the US, Thailand. There's only like a handful of places where it's like federally legal in the world. It's
yeah,
still one of those things where it's like, I really want to go to Japan super bad to play, but it's like we're definitely if we go to Japan, we're taking a multiple week break from smoking weed because you will get in serious trouble over
yeah.
there. And so there's a lot of places where you have to like be a little bit more mindful of it because I think you get used to in the US and in Canada just kind of being able to be a little more brazen and open about smoking weed.
So in your case, you are like more of an indica guy.
Sure. Yeah, I am. Yes. Uh-huh. I didn't know we were just going to be talking about weed a little bit, but I love to have a little weed talk. That's fine.
Sorry,
It's
sorry,
it's
apologize.
good. It's good. But yeah, no, that is something. It is a big, honestly, it's a weird part of Oklahoma now where we live. It's so I mean, if you drive down the main street I live by, you're going to pass six dispensaries and, pawn shops and liquor stores. There's just so many weed stores now. So
Honestly, I'm waiting for Mexico to do some sort of legalization because I know it is in the process. It has been approved by one of the. So we have three powers here: legislative, executive, and federal. one of those
Yeah.
powers already approved that, but it's a long process, and maybe 5 years in the future
That'd be
it's gonna be
sick.
legal. Yeah, let's
Yeah,
see.
then it could just be yeah, North America can have some legal weed. I would love to come to Mexico City. That's like top very close to the top of the list of places that we haven't been that I would love to. I mean, even just as a just like not going for band reasons, I'd love to play in Chat Pile in Mexico, but I've always wanted to go to Mexico and not go to because a lot of people here their only experience with Mexico is going to like resort towns and stuff, and
Yeah,
which is obviously not really an accurate picture of what it's like there. So I'd love to go to Mexico City. I mean, isn't it the most populated city in the continent? Like I think it's isn't it bigger than LA and New York now or something?
Mexico City, CDMX. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like we have friends that go there a lot, and yeah, I've always
actually,
wanted to go. So
I I live in Sonora, in one of the upper states
okay.
in the country, and here it's like not overly populated. It's quite big, one of the bigger states of the country, but the hotness, the weather is really, really hot here.
Oh, sure. I mean,
So
yeah, we're just where we're at above Texas, it's like it's not even, I mean, it gets super hot here, but yeah, Texas, it gets brutal. And I mean, you're just getting farther south. So
so I'm sure that one of the comments here asks, when are you coming to Mexico? So let me just go ahead and
yeah, I would love to, I mean, we don't have anything on the books, but that is definitely when we talk about, because obviously we're playing Roadburn next year, so we're trying to set up like a European mainland tour. But that is one of the things it's like when we talk about like, well, what else? What's after Europe? I would love like basically the top of the list is like I want to play Mexico or Central America or South America. Go, do the meme. We gotta go to Brazil. Like I'd love
right.
to I'd love to do that. I'd love to go to Mexico, maybe go to Argentina or something, and then I would love to go to, like I said before, Japan. It'd be crazy to go to like Taiwan or Hong Kong or something like that, and then I'd love to go to Australia. Those are like kind of the far away places that would be very cool to go to, but Mexico is always in discussion of like that would be an awesome thing to figure out how to make happen.
And you know what? Funny thing, it's more likely that you go visit Japan first and then Mexico.
I think sadly I think you are right. I think it is more likely that we'll play Japan first, probably just because we'll probably play Australia first out of those, and
Yeah,
it's easier to kind of weirdly a lot of bands will group those together. Well, you'll do Japan and Korea, and you'll fly down to Australia because it's kind of in the same part of the world,
yeah.
uh but yeah, no, it's definitely like I said, I would I'll probably just come to CDMX before like just as with my wife and I coming to Mexico. She speaks Spanish, and we would love
Oh,
to. She's a teacher, and so it's very helpful to. There's a lot of Spanish language people in Oklahoma, so it's very
mm.
helpful to be able to speak Spanish here.
And and
Uh,
and are you acquainted with Spanish?
a little bit. I know some vocab, we learn it a little bit in school here, but it's not super, especially if you don't practice it. It's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know grammar and stuff. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like if I'm listening to something Spanish language or I'm in a Mexican or like Guatemalan restaurant where people are speaking, because we have a lot of Guatemalan people that live here in Oklahoma. So a lot of Guatemalan restaurants. And so uh will hear people speak Spanish. I can pick out some words that I know,
Okay.
like keywords, like bathroom and what give
Baño.
the check, quinta or
La
whatever,
cuenta.
la cuenta. But yeah, like that type of stuff. But if someone was like trying to have a full blown conversation with me, I find that a lot of Spanish speakers speak very fast, and it's very hard for me to keep up with the language. But it's one of I wish that I spent more time becoming bilingual. Like I'm always that's now that I have some more free time, that is one of my things where it's like I want to I'd be very I mean, when I'm dead, I can't be disappointed, but I'll be very disappointed if I die being only an English speaker. I very much uh really interested in Spanish and Japanese, so I'd like to learn both of those at some point. Japanese, very difficult language. I don't know if I'm gonna
Yeah.
be able to get there.
First, go through Spanish, I would say, because once you learn a second language, the third one is gonna be
yeah,
less of a hassle.
and Spanish is at least like the sentence structure in English and Spanish are
Yeah,
much
yeah,
more similar than
definitely.
Japan, which is like complete Japanese is completely flipped, where like the subject's at the end of the sentence, and it's all crazy. But
Um, there's another comment here. I have a couple of more of this. Adrian is just asking, "Are you okay?" I don't know why.
I am doing well. I am okay. Yeah.
Christian is offering you a pozole. Are you familiar with that Mexican dish?
Is that the I'm not thinking is that like a stew type dish? Yeah. There's a couple restaurants here. I mix it up with menudo. Is that the other one?
Yeah.
Is yeah. I've had it before, yes. It's very
Oh,
good.
nice.
There's a
Well,
place down the street from me that serves it only on weekends, and I've ordered it before, and it is really good.
well, Christian is offering you for a pozole if you may accept one. I don't know why.
Hey, I love it. I love all Mexican food. One of some of the best stuff there is. So.
And you know what? The next question is also about Mexican food, I think. He's asking for your favorite kind of tacos.
Uh, Pastor, al pastor
Oh,
is my
nice.
favorite, especially if people are doing it with like the pineapple with the piña, like just yeah, I love it. Any of that type of stuff when it's on when it's on the trompo, that's what it's called. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh, I really love that type of stuff. But the thing is, I always feel bad because like I eat vegetarian a lot too, and it's like
Mm,
I've gone through periods of my life being vegetarian only, so it's like I hate that my answer is just like, yeah, the pork dish, the one that I feel bad about eating the most. But yeah, no, I love a pastor taco for sure, or maybe some carnitas.
oh,
But
tacos de carnita.
yeah, but here it's very Tex-Mex here, obviously. Like in
Right.
Oklahoma, it's very influenced by the Tex-Mex food culture and stuff. So there are some authentic, especially in South Oklahoma City, where there's a larger Mexican population. There's a lot of that part of Oklahoma City. All those signs are in Spanish and everything's in Spanish down there, and so you'll find some more authentic stuff there. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of Tex-Mex inspired, and
Mm,
there's like taco trucks and stuff that you can go to and stuff that's like very more kind of hole in the wall, but it's better here than in like, if you go to New York,
right.
there's nothing. They have great Italian food out there, great like delis and great all kinds of stuff, but it's like when I'm in the Northeast and they're like, yeah, we're in Ohio, and someone's like, you have to go to this Mexican restaurant. I'm like, I'm not going to the Ohio Mexican restaurant. I'm sorry to say, it's all going to taste like bland rice if I go there.
You know what? So you're from Oklahoma, right?
Mm.
Recently, I started to watch a new series, Tulsa King. So I
Oh,
don't know if you
sure.
familiar.
Yeah. 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 The Stallone. It takes because yeah, there's
Stallone.
two main cities in Oklahoma. There's Oklahoma City, which is in the center of the state, and then Tulsa, which is in the
Mm.
northeast part of the state. So
Oh, I see. It's far from
it's
where
about
you're
2 hours away. It's about
Oh,
2 hours from each other. So, but yeah, there's kind of a little, I don't want to say rivalry, but it's kind of like Tulsa people are like, fuck OKC, and OKC, Oklahoma
ah,
City people are like, why would you ever go to Tulsa? But yes, Tulsa. I have actually not watched Tulsa King. I think, funnily enough, they film that show in Oklahoma City, even though
oh,
it's set in Tulsa. But that's a weird thing where it's like there's been more tax incentives for because that's kind of a thing that happens here where it's like that's what a lot of movies and TV shows are produced in Georgia, in the state of Georgia in the US, and
mm,
like in the Atlanta area, because there's all these like tax breaks that movie
mm.
and like television production companies get for doing that. And that's starting to happen more in Oklahoma, where uh Scorsese just made a movie here. He did The Killers of the Flower Moon,
Oh,
uh and then there's a somewhat popular TV show that was called Reservation Dogs, rather.
oh,
It's
I
about
saw that one. It's
and yeah,
with,
that's set in East Oklahoma. That's set near where like my mom is from. She's out. The creator of that show, Sterling Harjo, he's from the same hometown as my mom, Holdenville, Oklahoma. Um, but yeah, it is, I don't know. It's very, very weird place we got here, but it's
Seems
kind
like a
of a
nice place. Seems like a nice place. At
it's
least
it's
that show
okay.
is is like a friendly watch or a friendly side of Oklahoma, I would say.
Yeah,
Even
for sure.
though it has this gangster topic.
Yeah, it is one of those. It is a place where it's like, I have family in New York, and when I'd go up there, they're like, "Where's your accent from?" I'm like, "I'm from Oklahoma." They're like, "Oh, is that in Ohio?" Like, we're
Oh,
like
they're
Oklahoma is a
lost.
place, yeah, that's like most people in the U.S. don't even think about this being a place where people live. Like, this has got to be towards the bottom of. I'm sure there's like people in this country who have never even heard of Oklahoma somehow, like, but Americans are not very good with their geography in general, so that's kind of tough.
Uh, well, another question from Gabriel. He just asks why.
Well, because someone's gotta.
uh, Ale asks for some sorts for inspiration to write letras desgarradoras. This would be like disheartened lyrics.
I don't know. I know for like again, because I don't write the lyrics, but for Ray, he likes to pull from, like I said, there'll be like a top. Sometimes it'll be like, oh, he wants to write a song about, homelessness or something. But a lot of time he's pulling from, as we all do, pulling from movies and books, and like, you're always inspired by all kinds of art. At least I feel like when you're making stuff, it's a fool's errand to only focus on one. Like if you're, I mean, it's cool just to be super into music, and I mean, nothing wrong with only being to that. But I mean, you should read some books, you should watch some movies, you should go look at some paintings. Like there's ways to draw inspiration from any of that stuff and put it into another art form. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are painters that go see a movie and then feel moved to paint something, or like read a book, or like, listen to music and feel moved to paint. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like that is definitely for us. And with him, with the lyrics, I know he'll definitely, especially fiction writing and movies and stuff, films are very, you know, it's fun to find ways to have that kind of stuff influence you. And since we're not making movies, this is kind of our version of making those type of little short horror stories. That's he uses his lyrics kind of to. It's not very autobiographical on chat pile stuff. It's him kind of writing characters and writing like, this is a song about this type of person in this specific place, which is kind of like the horror movie, or kind of like we like Stephen King a lot, even though I know people have lots of opinions about Stephen King, whether he's good or bad. But it's just like, I grew up reading a lot of stuff like that, and so did Ray. So, you know, that type of stuff is just kind of, that's where all this stuff comes from. It's just,
And what will be your version of that? Reading books, go hiking, go to the beach. What will be your version of, reset?
yeah, I mean, we yeah, I just think it can be easy, especially when you're making stuff like this, to get super, I don't know how to put it, like super obsessive over stuff. And like, I said it earlier, but you can kind of get in the weeds a little bit, where it's like you're you're it's easy to be a perfectionist, and sometimes you need that, but sometimes you can get so stuck in working on songs, or like working on whatever art thing you're working on, or it's like, honestly, when I'm writing music, kind of the last thing I want to do, music is kind of gets pushed to the bottom of the thing I'm wanting the most when we're writing. It's like, you know, movies and art kind of goes to the
Mm,
top for me whenever we're in full on writing mode. Cause it's like, you're, we're pulling in influences from different things for writing music, but it's like, sometimes it's just like when you're writing a bunch, it's like the last thing I want to do is then go home and listen to more music. It's like, I kind of want to do other stuff. And then you find yourself finding inspiration in those other things, and like you said, even stuff like hiking. Yeah, two of our band members are big into hiking. That is, I mean,
mm,
sadly, I am the least active member of Chat Pile. I am the most staying inside and
I see.
watching movies and playing video games and reading and stuff. But uh yeah, especially Stin and Ray, they are, and Aaron, they are big hikers and stuff. So I need to be better about it. I need to get out, get outside a little more. But
I enjoy the beach from time to time. I'm a beach guy. I should say. Um,
Are you close to the water where you're at?
yeah, actually, I lived in 4 states of Mexico, and all of them in the coast of the Pacific coast. I
Okay,
don't
cool.
want to get far from the beach, actually. Um, Another comment, and this is well, it's one of the comments. Would you fill out your house or from homeless people for life, or like
Uh,
you?
yeah, I mean, you're right. I guess I probably could put my money where my mouth is and have people come stay with us. I mean, I will say I mentioned earlier I had my issues with drugs and stuff. I have been homeless before and I had a place to stay and had to sleep outside and had to, you know, you maybe find people's couches to crash on, and sometimes you can't find couches to crash on. You got to sleep outside and stuff. So yeah, no, it sucks. I wish the thing is, it kind of gets back to it's like a thing with, uh, bear with me on this analogy, but it's kind of like a thing with like pollution as well, where it's like they're like, hey, normal person, you need to use paper straws now because the
Mm,
world is being destroyed. It's like, oh, well, like Coca-Cola Corporation does more polluting than like does enough polluting for like 5 billion people's worth. You know what I mean? So it's like at the end of the day, there are countless empty vacant houses in this country and across the world. There are plenty of houses. There's not a shortage of houses. There's enough for everyone. People should just it's a no-brainer. So that's why it's like, yeah, we are just, some fucking liberal dudes from the US who are like, yeah, homelessness shouldn't be a thing. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, it really it makes no sense. It really is just a class issue. It really is just, you know, uh it seems like it's an insurmountable problem, but it's really just a problem of apathy. It's really just no one cares about unhoused people, and it's not a attractive thing to talk about. And even though I live in a city, there's a giant skyscraper downtown that an oil company built that's basically vacant, and it's like okay, if you walk around out there, there's a ton of there's 1,000 unhoused people out, and that there's a big encampment. It's like not saying they all need to go in there, but it's like it's easy to see the solutions of like, oh,
yeah,
well, there's all this empty space and empty buildings that you just are running power to that are empty. And yet I see a bunch of people on the street. I think about there's this huge hurricane in the Gulf right now that's going towards Florida. I was just talking to my dad about it. It's like, there's these mandatory evacuations and stuff. And I'm like, what if you're a homeless person and you don't have a phone? I mean, I'm sure it's hard to, you're going to hear about the hurricane coming, but it's just like, I just think about the people there that there's going to be people that just straight up die out there and drown in surge water just because they don't have a place to live. And they're probably going to die in front of a vacant building. You know what I mean? It's just
yeah.
like, it's really, it's really, I know it can kind of, that song of ours kind of can get memed a little bit, and some people be like, I know why. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of rhetorical, we all know why, right? Like that song isn't about us literally asking
Asking,
why.
yeah.
It's like, it's pretty clear if you use your eyes, why, that there are, I mean,
It's
he
more
even
like
says in that
it's more
song,
like a cry of desperation, right?
yeah, yeah, for real. And so, you know, we can all do stuff in our own lives to make things better for other people and stuff. Yeah, I mean, it is one of those things where I could see where someone would be like, "Oh, you guys wrote a song about homelessness, so are you having homeless people come stay in your house?" It's like, well, you're right, you got me. No, we're not. But we, you just got to do the stuff that you can, and I just really, I do hope that not just the U.S. but just society in general around the world can just like there's just so many things that are easily fixable, and that if you just maybe don't spend $1 trillion on killing each other, maybe there's a little bit of money to spend on unpoisoning the water supply in cities, or having people be able to live in a house with dignity instead of having to live on the streets just because of whatever. It's so yeah.
So I think we know this is not a problem of resources or infrastructure. The buildings are there, the resources exist, right? Just is
Yeah.
as you mentioned, it's about apathy and about well other things about our societies that maybe will take the conversation on another path. But yeah, I do agree with all of things that you mentioned, and it's nice to know and to see that you went from a bad place in your life, and now you where you are now.
Yeah, I mean, that was, yeah, I mean, a lot of things happen in your life to take you to different places and take you from places. And so, I'm 34 and, I was doing all that stuff mainly when I was like 17 and stuff and like in high school being, an idiot and getting into trouble. And yeah, no, I very well, a lot of people I knew from back then died, overdosed, are in jail, you know, go to the mental hospital. Like, it's all different kinds of stuff. So, uh, yeah, I definitely feel lucky to make it through the other side a little bit. It's been a long time since I've done any of that hard stuff. So, but yeah, it is, that's just the thing. It's like we're all on a razor's edge. I mean, I'm in a band that people have heard of, and I'm one emergency away from, I mean, you know what I mean? Like my bank, you know what I mean? So it's just like two bad things happen in my life, and I'm on the street, So it's
It's
like,
like you have a successful band, but you are still living day by day, right?
yeah, so I mean, it's just one of those things where hopefully as we grow, maybe that gets relieved a little bit more, and we can make some more income and stuff. But it's just one of those things where it's like, unless you're like a rich person, I don't know. It's just so much of this stuff are just like class issues, and it's just like,
Yeah,
eh, you know, like you said, or like we were talking about it. It's just you see the solutions there, you see the all the things that could happen, and it's just very frustrating. Especially here, we're in a very crazy time in the US, the elections in less than a month here. And so, it's really hard to stomach like that
the
I have to
options.
the options.
Huh.
And it's just like obviously, I guess I'd prefer Harris over Trump, but it's just like, but she's still gonna send $1 trillion to Israel, and I still like my taxes go to killing children. So it's just like,
Yeah,
how am I supposed to? That's a lot of that feeling comes in our record where it's just like, it's hard to not feel hopeless sometimes, where even when you're trying your best, it's like, well, the structures that support everything are so intent on keeping everything how it is. It's hard to see. It's like, oh, well, if you're telling me I just have to go vote, how do I vote for complete and total reform of all this stuff? It's like we're not able to vote on that. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know what needs to happen. I mean, I'm kind of a coward, so I'm just like, I don't know what's gonna happen with all this stuff, but I'm just like, at least in the US, I mean, it's coming to a head here. It's a really crazy time to be alive. It's like on one hand, we're like closer than ever to a cure for cancer, and like for people with money, the standards of living are the highest they've ever been. And then like, half the people in the US can't read at above like a two to like a second grade level, basically. And like, it's just it's a very, I don't know, it's just a very weird time to live in.
weird.
And so I feel like we try and put some of that into the music, and hopefully people can relate to this feeling of the world is on fire, and it's because it's not nihilistic. We're not saying and therefore nothing matters. I think we're all just like,
Right.
man, I wish it was better. It's so clear the path
So,
to make it better.
this record at the end could, or is it possible that this record at the end sees a light of hope, a shine of hope?
I think so. I mean, it is a pretty bleak record, especially with the way it ends. But I mean, I think the subjects that Ray writes about specifically, I think if you're a misanthrope or if you're nihilistic, you just don't even you wouldn't even care about that type of stuff. It's like you can only write about these type of like things going on in the world if you care a little bit. If we were just like, and there, like I said, if it's like, yeah, the world sucks, so you know who cares? I just don't. I mean, I hope that people can tell when they listen to our music that that's not the message of our stuff.
Yeah,
I think it's definitely like it's supposed to be a little cathartic. Like hopefully it gives there's some release in listening to it. Like if people also have this frustration of feeling like you don't really have much control over what is happening in the world right now. It seems like we're all on a speeding train, And so it can feel really hopeless. But if you give in to the full pessimism, I mean, it's just you can't live like that. I mean, you
Yeah,
just can't. You can't. So
I'm
it's
sure that you at some point lived by with pessimism. I know I did, but I learned that that's not a good way of living. We have
yeah,
to have some be cynical about it, I guess, instead of pessimistic. Just be cynical. The world is what it is,
yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah, I definitely have, at least in our group, I tend to be the most pessimistic of the band. It's just like I'm always like the, oh, something bad's gonna happen type guy. But
mm,
I agree. It is one of those things where it's like I find myself feeling a lot better when I don't dwell on that stuff. I mean, it's very basic to say that's like, oh, when you just think about negative stuff all the time, you feel pretty negative,
but
and it's
I don't think the music that Chat Piles makes could come from a place of pessimistic or giving up. There is frustration there, but there's also like I don't know, a sense of call to action maybe, or empower the conversation at least, right?
yeah, I mean, again, it's like you can only I don't want to be one of those people that's like, our music is going to change the world. It's not one of those things, but it's like, while we have any audience at all, eh, it's you gotta, I don't know, it's especially if you're writing about real stuff, if it's not all just like, I don't know, if you're talking about the human experience and stuff, it's like, or especially, we're writing this type of music. I don't know. You just gotta, I don't know, be honest with it. And, uh, yeah, I feel like if you lean too much into the pessimism, it's not, I don't know. It's just, it's not very healthy. But you can't, I mean, but it's also, again, stuff like this, it is cathartic to be able to, I think that's why, people come to our shows and stuff, or not even just our band, but bands like us. And it's like, you hear people, you go to some band, it's like, they make depressing music or really bleak music, but you go to the show and people are like, I had a great time, or it was really like fulfilling to go to the show. It's this, I think there is something about getting together with a group of people and all kind of feeling the same feeling together. And even if that is a negative feeling, it can actually maybe be positive. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if we're all just like, yeah, hey, why are things this way? Not that like, people are gonna listen to our record and that's, like I said, gonna change the world or anything. But I hope, if anyone listens to this stuff, they at least somewhat think about their role in society and just
Yeah.
like just what it is to live these days and just like think, I don't know, think about it a little bit.
Are you familiar with this band from the UK called Ashen Spire?
Yes, yeah. I think our buddy Gerald is in that band, who is also in some other he's in they're Scottish, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we they played a fest with us in Glasgow last year on a different day. So we talked to them a little bit. I think they're
That's
one.
yeah,
They're cool
Glasgow.
though. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So I mentioned them because of their last record, Hostile Architecture, is somewhat related to the issues of God's country. But like for example, how under the bridges in some big cities, they put like spikes so people can not sleep there or instead have
Yeah.
shelter. So instead of okay, we are not changing anything, but instead of just leave it as it is, we or they make it worse for them.
Worse. Yeah. There's a lot of that here. I mean, it's all, yeah, hostile architecture. You'll see the one that drives this is just like such a perfect encapsulation of it too. There's in downtown Oklahoma City, there's this building. It's called like the Catholic Charities Building. So it's like a Catholic center, and it is like they do charity work and stuff. And there's like these benches out in front of it. And so you would think that maybe the benches in front of the charity center would like not, but they literally have these like bronze statues of like people laying on them. So it's like
Ah,
they've literally it's like, oh no, a person can't lay on this. We've made like a statue to block. It's like so like did you guys not just think about it for 1 second? Like what you can't even be homeless at like the charity center. You have to have
Yeah,
like some brutal like it's like what's the point of even having this bench if you're just gonna fill it? I don't know. It's just so
I seen pictures of those
foolish.
cases. Yeah, yeah, it
It's like I don't know.
makes no
It's
sense, and is it it makes me angry to think of it, you know?
yeah, because like you said, it's not just like, oh, you could just leave it. It's not like it's nice to sleep on a bench outside. It's not like it's nice to
Right.
sleep under the bench. You're sleeping on concrete probably or metal. It sucks. So it's like, yeah, it already is bad. If someone is sleeping under the bridge, it's not, I mean, for the most part, it's not because they want to be sleeping under the bridge. But yeah, it's I don't know. It
I
is
actually saw recently a video of the people living under the tunnels of Las Vegas.
mm,
I don't know if you're
yeah.
familiar with those cases, but oh man,
Yes, I know there's a
how
whole like kind of like underground city of like unhoused people that like get to Vegas because Vegas is a crazy place. But yeah, they get to Vegas and then it's like you kind of get trapped there a little bit. I mean, that's also kind of the thing about the US that's so sprawled. I mean, if you spend the last of your money to get somewhere, it can kind of be like, well, how are you going to get back? It's
mm,
like if you live 30 hours away or something, it's and a lot of people are coming from smaller towns and then go out to Vegas, get into drugs or whatever, and then it's like, oh shit, now 5 years has gone by and you're living, in the underground tunnels underneath Vegas, because like what else are you gonna do? Yeah, I think I don't know if it was a Vice documentary, but there was some documentary I feel like I saw about like there's like a tunnel community, like an underground
yeah,
community in
yeah,
Vegas specifically that I
that
saw.
basically lives in the dark,
Yeah.
and with this is smelly. Well, what
Yeah. Vegas is a crazy place in general. That's just like it's there should not be golf courses in Las Vegas. I guess that's all, what I'm trying to. It's just like it's kind of like an affront to if there is a God, we are spitting in God's face by having Las Vegas be what it is. I'm not saying no one should live in Nevada. Obviously, people lived in Nevada long before people colonized this country, but uh, yeah, it's seemingly a place that is extremely like it gets like
in the
120 degrees there. It's crazy there. It's like yeah, it's
and we can see like the extreme opposites of the spectrum, right? From the richest people to I got nothing.
oh yeah. I mean, it's truly. I mean, if you want to see that type of America, yeah, Vegas is. And the thing is, it's like I don't fully like hate Vegas as a place. Like it's like I got married in Vegas actually as like a kitschy thing, and like it was fun. But it's like it is such an example of just like hubris. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, and like you said, you go to the strip, and I mean, I'm not a gambler, so we just went to eat food, and just because it was a funny thing to do, but it was just like, yeah, I mean, it's the most just opulent and just like vulgar display of wealth and just
mm,
like just yeah again I bring up the golf courses because it's just like the gallons and gallons and gallons of water that is wasted on growing perfectly green grass in the desert for recreation only. It's just like I don't
right.
know, it's so crazy to me. It's just like
The waste of resources, right?
yeah. And so, I mean, I love sports and stuff, so I'm not being like, and that's why, fuck golf or whatever. I mean, fuck golf, whatever. But it is just like, it's just one of those things you think about with places like that, where it's just like, I don't know. Again, there shouldn't just be people having to live underneath the city. Just, there's plenty of space in Vegas for everyone in most cities.
And plenty of land too,
Yeah. So,
And for example, in Mexico, I think there's a law in which you cannot take a piece of land that is in the middle of nowhere
hmm.
because you just can't.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's probably so much stuff is like, I mean, in this country, everything is taken by someone now.
mm,
It's like everyone owns it, but it's like other than like, the national parks and stuff like that. But I mean, Oklahoma was a place where we had a thing called the land run. This was in the late 1800s into the early 1900s, where so Oklahoma was fully so basically a lot of native people were forced to I don't know if they teach this in Mexico, but the Trail of Tears is what it was called here, where it's like they forced native people basically Andrew Jackson, the president, and then to walk to Oklahoma. So basically, it was part of like the Indian genocide or the native
Mm,
genocide that happened here. And so they were kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess you guys can have this terrible piece of land called Oklahoma that a lot like because there were tribes that lived here, but even then it's like this is hard land. Like it wasn't the most desirable place to live. So basically, we give the native people some of the worst land in the country, which is Oklahoma. And then that wasn't even enough. So then the land run happens in the 1800s. They're like, actually, what's going to happen is we're going to have a race, and they're like literally going to have a starting line. It's like we're going to like do blow the gun, and then you can just race out, and wherever you stake your claim, that's your land now. It doesn't matter if it belonged to a native person. It doesn't matter who, whatever. It's like, nope, you just get to go and stake your claim and just take your land. And that's literally like how Oklahoma started as like because it was no man's land during the Civil War here. It was like it was not really it wasn't part of the Confederacy or
mm,
the Union. So very weird place with a lot of history in Oklahoma. So I mean, that's all just to say, yeah, it's there's a lot of a history of brutal suffering and just like all that stuff. It's like you I'm sure lots of people that grew up here and live here don't even think about it ever, but it's like college football is American football, but like college teams are very popular in this part of the country.
mm,
We don't have a pro football team here, but our team is called the Oklahoma Sooners, and
mm,
Sooners were the people. So like I said, there was this land run that's officially sanctioned, but there were some people that were like, you know what? I know we're allowed to go steal land tomorrow, but what if we left today and went there early and got the good spots before everyone else was? And so they did that. And those people are called Sooners, and those are the mascots of that is the mascot of the
fuck,
school, are the people that stole the land sooner. Like
fuck.
it's very strange. And so there's all kinds of as soon as you start peeling back any layer of history of what's going on in America, it's very easy to be like, this is the worst time in American history right now, which it's a pretty bad one. But it's a country built on nightmares for the past
Yeah.
200 years. So it's yeah.
Actually, just to share some history on Sonora. Sonora was a state like that. United States have big plans. Like there were some fights or wars here fi- fought in those periods of time. But native people here, like they couldn't win against them, and
Yeah.
so it's supposed to be the railroad that United States built during those times was supposed to get to the port of Guaymas, like down the south on this state. So how, how I don't know how to phrase this, but I'm yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but
Yeah.
they, there's some shared history here,
Yeah.
with the things that you're describing about trying to just take the land of native people here, indigenous people.
Yeah. I mean, Mexico and the US definitely have a very similar history in that way of just, people just came to both and were like, oh, Canada too. I mean, I mean, it's a lot of the whole world has just been people from Europe coming on
Mm,
boats and taking the land from everyone else. But uh, yeah, I mean, it is. That's why it's. I don't know. That's why it's always so. I mean, I don't know. It's always so strange to me how. I mean, I know the cultures of the three countries in our continent are very different, but it is just like there's so much of a shared history there of like a lot of our countries kind of ended up being shaped in similar ways, even though
yeah,
we're different in North America. But
with
it
different
is
outcomes, but it's shaped in a similar way. Yeah,
yeah, between Canada, America, and Mexico. But it is a it's strange. It's just part of living in the modern world where it's like, oh, after we're done talking, I'm gonna, play some video games or something and like, not think about how terrible the world is. But it's like, a lot of people don't have that luxury to not think about how bad it is right now. And so it is just, I don't know, a long way of saying with this new record that if these are the type of things that you also think about, maybe you will get something out of Cool World by Jetpile.
Yes, and I should say that these things that we are discussing now could make for a good topic for the tier record. You know,
Yeah, sure.
you already discussed the micro and then the macro. What could be next? An utopia.
Yeah, I
uh,
know we joke around about how like we either have to go farther back or farther forward. So either the next album has to be historical or it has to be in space. Like it has one of the two. It's either going to be about like doom, like the
but
like your
what I,
yeah.
what I like about chat pile is that yes, it's a hard topic to tackle, but there's some sort of poetry, uh, poetry insert
Okay.
there. I can find it. I don't know if it's consciously done by your vocalist or not, but there's some sort of poetry there, sense of
Yeah,
poetry.
I think even more so on this one, like God's Country was even more kind of like ranty and rambling, and there's more metaphor on this record.
Mm.
I think there's some more. I think it's his best work. I mean, I personally, I know every band always is like our new record's the best one. I do think this one is better than God's Country personally, and I just think that part of the reason is because yeah, I think I think he did a really good job on coming up with stuff for this record. And like I said, I was just very anytime I'd hear the new for the first time whatever his vocal take was going to be, it was like every time on this record I was just like that is the perfect thing. I'm very glad, it just worked out really well. But yeah, I think it definitely this one is a little more poetic than the last one. It kind of goes with the goth vibe in general. It has more of that type of feel. So
Well, a couple of final questions here. Where, I mean, picturing your country, America as a whole, where do you see it 20 years in the future?
20 years, the US. We're in full like fully we're like the shortage of clean drinking water has probably happened by now. 20 years, what? So we're in 2044, 2045. I mean, if we haven't literally died in nuclear war by then, I would say we're in the 40s, we're really feeling the effects of climate change by that point, I'm imagining. So I'm imagining I mean, what? I'm in my 50s at that point. I'm hoping that everything is I don't know. That's the thing. It's just like s- I don't think every person on Earth is gonna like die. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
society moves on. It might be different in 20 years. We'll see. I'm hoping that it doesn't at least maybe I'm putting too much of an emphasis on America because I'm just like, other places will move on fine, but it's like I could see the America looking very different in the next 20 years. I just
Mm.
think, I don't know, this empire is falling. I think more and more people see the cracks. They see just how, just, I don't know, how stupid they think we all are, just in that. And that's also the sad truth is people are very stupid. It kind of sucks. So I don't know. It's hard to think 20 years in the future. It's hard to not be pessimistic for me just
Yeah.
to immediately go to the climate change place. But I mean, hey, I live in a place that gets hit by tornadoes. The second huge hurricane in like 2 weeks going on right now. And, one just hit the Carolinas and then it's about to hit Florida. I mean, right now, I think that's happening currently as we speak.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
supposed to make landfall right now.
I
So
I I
it went over
watched the
Yucatan,
news.
right? In Mexico, I know it was like the Yucatan area was
Yeah.
getting hit as
Yeah.
well. So it's just, yeah, I know it's a nightmare, and that's just gonna become the norm. I mean, it's like it's not it it'd be too quick for it to all end in a bomb going off. I feel like the apocalypse will be much more sad and drawn out, and it'll
Mm.
be people, society will continue on, but things are just, there's just going to be more and more huge storms and more, Miami's going to sink into the ocean.
You know, there's one song that I discovered this year. It's one long song, and it has like a poem in the lyrics. And I would like to send it to you if you give me an email to email you.
Sure.
Um,
Did you have our band email? Like, because
uh,
wherever we got the
I
Zoom
can
link for,
I can search for it. Is it on?
it's just chatpileband@gmail.
Okay, yeah. So I think you will like to experience it.
Yeah.
Um, and well, I saw the movie Civil War, and I think
Sure.
there's not too far from what could be a scenario in your country.
Yeah, the thing I just don't know because the other thing is like there's a lot of people, especially in this country, that talk a lot of talk that are like, yeah, I want there to be a civil war or something, and then like they no, it's very easy to talk about that type of stuff, but that's would be horrible. It would be horrifying if that happens again. It's just like eh, I don't know. Like I said, I'd like to have more optimism in that. Hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully, we are able in this country to get more social programs passed and the world can come together and realize that climate change must we must do what we can now. We're already past the point of no return. So hopefully maybe some of that stuff can happen. I know places like California are committed to having like I think there's every car has to be emissions free by like
Mm,
2030 or something. Like it's something crazy. Like within the next 10 years there can't be like gasoline vehicles in California. So I mean hope I don't know. I don't know if that's a solution. I hope humanity can come together and find a way to make it through all this, but for the next 5, 10 years, I still think we're going to be okay. Who knows with what's going on with uh in the Middle East right now. You never know with this if it's just going to be the final straw that just makes people go, well, I guess we're just going to end the world now. But uh you can't really dwell on that stuff. I feel like if you get in the cycle of just thinking about how the world might end at any point, you'll just never get anything done. It's too easy to just to live and be scared. Like it's better. You just got to live your life. So I don't want, you asked me the question, where do you see it in 20 years? I hate to be such a downer and be like, well, I think it's going to be a nightmare, but I guess it's like, we're still all just got to try and make it through it though. It's not like it's going to be a nightmare and therefore I'm going to kill myself. It's like, no,
right.
it's just like we're all going to try and make it through. So I hope we do. I really do. And, you know, whenever I think about how there's a lot of bad stuff in the world, I have to remember that there are also a lot of good people in the world and people that are trying to do stuff. And not everyone is in a death cult that wants to die in some crazy, you know what I mean? So like, you gotta kind of bank on that a little bit that hopefully, uh, preservation will maybe take over and maybe eventually you can't ignore when major cities are getting swallowed up by the ocean and stuff. But
Mm,
who knows? It's gonna be, I will say this, I think it's gonna be an interesting couple decades coming up. I don't think we're gonna stop living through, people's like you're living through moments in time right now that are going to be written about in history books. I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. I think there's a
yeah.
lot of crazy shit that's going to happen in the next 20 years. So, hey, hopefully we're all still doing it. People are seeing us on at we're washed up at some casino playing God's country songs. We're all 50s and 60 and who knows, but we'll see.
Well, for the meantime, I hope to see you next on and talk about the third record in the future.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
let's see how the landscape has changed. Social, political landscape has changed. I don't know, 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, ideally we would start writing the third album. I mean, we have ideas already that we've been kind of working on, but I mean, we're going to do a lot of touring and then ideally we would start up in the summertime next year, summer, fall, trying to write the third one. So I would hope by 25 or 26 we'd have another one out, but we'll see, It's just who knows what's going to happen. But
Yeah.
that should be the plan. Tour, write another one, tour, write another one. So, we'll see.
Going to the circuit, right? tour another album.
Yep.
That's the
It's
circuit.
yep. We'll see how long we can keep it going for. So
I want to ask you, since you mentioned that you're a music nerd, for recommendations, like your top three bands or new discoveries that you could recommend to us.
we mentioned this band a lot, but just one of my favorite current bands is this band Nightosphere. Uh, it's like Nightosphere. So Nightosphere. But
Nightosphere.
they're kind of like a they have an album called Catabasis, but it's kind of in the vein of bands like Codeine or Red House Painters or like kind of that slowcore type stuff.
Mm,
It's like female vocals and stuff, but it's like they have a really strong rhythm section and the vocals are like very memorable and have good harmony. So it's like a thing that it takes a type of music that I'm interested in, that kind of like slower, super kind of like depressing indie rock, but like a lot of times that stuff doesn't really have a very strong sense of rhythm. It's usually very like vocal and guitar driven, and there's maybe not a lot of bass and drums. And Nightosphere, they're able to kind of have what I like about that music, which is like the kind of dreamy and melancholy parts, but like it actually has rhythm, it has groove and stuff, and it's just they're awesome. We tour with them and stuff, so it's like kind of a cheat answer to be like, yeah, our friends, we love them, but they are amazing. One of my favorite records so far this year, at least for heavy stuff, that newer Pyron record. It's
oh, yeah.
crazy. That's I mean, that album is awesome. Um trying to think if there's anything maybe not
Are
that's
you are you familiar with Big Brave
yeah, Big
from
Brave is
Canada?
cool. Yeah, absolutely.
And
Uh
I'm thinking of a band from Los Angeles called Sprain. I think it's also on the Flenser. I
yeah,
could be
yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, they are on the Flinzer. I think they're kind of on hiatus now
Yeah,
though. We never really got to meet them. We played a showcase like a Flinzer thing last year and they were on it, but like we kind of just like ships in the night. We kind of just didn't get to talk to each other. But for newer stuff, yeah, definitely that Pyron album and that Nightosphere record. For older stuff, if I have one, at least for writing this record, I was for some reason, I mean, it's hard to hear it, but there's a '90s band called Shudder to Think. I'm a
Shudder,
big
I think.
yeah. They had an album called Funeral at the Movies, and then one called Pony Express record, and both of those, like I was just listening to both of those records a ton while we were kind of like this past fall and winter. There've been I've liked them since high school, but I just got like really back into that band a lot. So I've kind of been slacking on new music as much this year. I used to like use like sites like Rate Your Music and Sputnik like different like music rating websites, and like I especially when I worked in the office, I was listening to like, 8 new
Mm,
albums a day sometimes. I'm just listening to so much music. And yeah, it has dropped off a bit. So I need to uh, usually when we're in the van, we actually like listen to a lot of new releases and stuff. And
nice.
like we were like listening to like the new Taylor Swift last tour because it had just come out. Where it's like, fuck it, we have 4 hours to kill. Let's listen to the 2 hour long acoustic Taylor Swift album to see what it sounds like. So I need to be better about catching up on some stuff this year. I did listen to the new Undeath record
Oh, yeah.
that just came out, and I love death metal for like metal stuff. That's kind of my zone more so than the others. So I that's the thing I keep up with the most is death
How
metal.
how about Bloody Cantation?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I do, peace and love, peace and love. It's not, I would say I like the previous two albums more. It's a little too on the Pink Floyd side for
Mm,
me, but no, they're sick. Blood Incantation's sick. I own like two of their shirts. I've seen them multiple times and they're awesome. That whole like kind of scene of bands, because like they have shared members with Spectral Voice as well, and this band Black Curse, which
yeah.
both Denver bands as well that are very sick, and all that stuff is just super cool. But yeah, the Blood Incantation album, I know that they're just like, I mean, they're blowing up even more. They're already one of the biggest death metal bands out there right now, and that I know they just got like a best new music from Pitchfork for the new one, and it's definitely a crazy and progressive record. They are very confident in what they are making. It's just I am not as into the proggy side. I kind of
Mm.
I like when it's proggier, I'm more into bands like Gorguts and stuff, where I don't know if you'd call that
Oh,
proggy, but it's like I like the kind of the challenging avant-garde atonal stuff. Again, I mentioned Pyron, like that's kind of the more dissonant style rather than the progressive style, which to go full circle, which is why Artificial Brain is so cool because I think they do a good mixture of doing dissonant, weird stuff like a band like Gorguts, but still doing cool, like almost stuff that you could consider progressive metal or has that kind of prog sound to it. But it's cool.
that brand of raw production, right? Let me
Yeah.
suggest you this band, Siderean. Sorry, I just wrong capital letters there. Are you familiar with them?
Okay.
From
No.
Slovenia. They released
Slovenia. Okay.
they released recently, I think, one of the sickest death metal records of the year, and hopefully you can share that opinion after you listen to it.
Yeah, I'm gonna check them out. See if I can
Um,
check that.
of
Oh yeah,
course,
they're from Slovenia.
of
Interesting.
course, the upcoming Gigan on Wheel of Time.
Oh yeah.
That wrecked me, you know.
Oh, I'm actually this isn't death metal, but next week the new Aranci Pazuzu album comes out, and they are Mester and Kinsey is my favorite like metal related thing of the decade so far. Like I mentioned Diner Coffee too with Mama Leak, but like Mester and Kinsey is truly like I don't know. As much as I'm like a guitar music guy, electronic music is like it's so hard to make electronic music work in a non like kind of corny way with metal to me sometimes. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it can work really well. Or like you listen to a band like Summoning, which it can be like kind of corny, but that's like kind of the charm of it. But sometimes you just end up sounding like Winds of Plague or something. It's just like I don't know, you can't it's like having the electronic stuff doesn't work, but Rancy Bazuzu, like I don't know, they're I know people have different thoughts about bands like Nine Inch Nails, but they're like doing stuff with it that like I haven't felt about since like hearing Nine Inch Nails for the first time when I was like, this is a truly like cool fusion of these two things that like is really interesting.
Well, I can say that this new record leans uh, more into that 9 inch nails, even dead grips at moments, and it's like a movie, you know, it's like a movie.
I can't
Uh,
wait. I've listened to the two singles they put out, and I typically don't really listen to singles. I like to just kind of have the album hit me at once, but like I couldn't wait, and they both sounded sick. So that's I'm just like when I heard that it was coming out the same day as our record, I was just like, that's gonna be it's a fun day for me. Oh, okay, for some reason I said next week. That comes out in 2 days. Yeah, it's
yeah,
also this
yeah.
week. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I will definitely be listening to that on Friday. I did not get a copy early, so I'm stoked for
Well,
that one.
we are joking about how this year October of this year is like the most dense month for extreme music releases because it's the amount
There's
of
so much stuff.
records this in particularly in October. On October is I wish I could list you all because it's really exciting for me
I think
and
it's
for
just
us.
because a lot of bands like you put out the record in the fall so you can like tour on it in the fall. A
Mm,
lot of that stuff,
yeah.
it's just like October is just a really good month to put stuff out and it just kind of lines up, I think, with a lot of people's schedules for, getting getting stuff booked. So yeah, it ended up working out for us. We put the last one out in it was in July of 22. But yeah, it's a ton of stuff coming out, not even just, music. There's like games and movies and
Mm.
everything. There's this time of year, it's just like there's too much stuff to, you know, to get to all of it, It's just there's too much. So
I wish I could recommend you more, but let's leave some room for the other for next. Okay. Um,
yes.
last question: if you could relate what a cool world is to you in your mind to a movie, a book, a
Mhm.
painting, which one will it be and why?
I mean, the funny answer is that it's the movie Cool World, which
Oh
is
yeah.
not, but that is literally we're just like taking that title from that and like trying to reuse it in a different context because that movie is not really uh you know not really. But I don't know. It's hard to say because I mean, the easy comparison for our band a lot of times it's like I want to say something like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something because I do think the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, nothing we have made is nearly as good as that movie, but like because I do think that movie is like one of the 10 best pieces of like American art like ever is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And so, but I think that has like it has a DIY quality to it. It has a political edge to it. It is horrifying. It's uniquely American. So Texas is right next to Oklahoma. We have a shared culture there as well. So it's easy to be like, Texas Chainsaw or Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 even, which is kind of like the satirical one. Uh if you want an insane answer, maybe the movie Southland Tales. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but that is a very over the top, crazy. It's definitely political. It's satirical. It's
Okay, unexpected reference.
it's a very weird movie. If you just look at the cast, you'll be like, "What? Why are these people in this movie?" Just the image. It's like, yeah, it's The Rock and Sean William Scott and Sarah Michelle.
Yeah,
It's a crazy movie though. I actually love that movie. It's surreal. It's super weird, but uh
you know what?
yeah.
I'm gonna watch it tonight.
Oh yeah, have
Now I'm
fun with
curious.
Southland Tales. Yeah,
Now
have
I'm
fun with
curious.
Southland Tales. You are either gonna think it's one of the worst movies you've ever seen in your entire life, or you're gonna be like, that was insane and I have to watch it again. So
um, I have a couple of reference for you in about this record, Years and Years, the series.
what
I
was
think
that?
it's Years and Years. So, well,
Okay. Are they
it's
is that a
a mini series from the UK
okay
and
TV?
a Spanish movie, El Hoyo. It's on Netflix. But I think it's the whole
Okay. Oh, Hoyo.
El Hoyo. Yeah.
Hoyo. H is silent, right? Can't.
Yes. Yes.
Oh yeah, I'll check both of these. I'll check this out.
And this is related to Chatpile in my mind, in my head, in my experience.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'll definitely note both of these down. Years and years, and the platform, is that what that means? That's what Google is saying. El Hoyo, the platform. Huh. Yeah, I'll save this for sure. Sounds cool.
Okay, Luther. Well, thank you for your time. It's already over 2 hours in this
Yeah, sure.
conversation,
Let's do it.
but I appreciate that you, yeah, for your good disposition, this
Yeah, well,
conversation.
yeah, love talking about this stuff. It's cool that anyone cares. So I'm glad to talk for a little while about the weird thing we made. So
And well, best of luck with the release. People, your fans and your fans will love it. I know I do. So
thank you. And yeah, hopefully we'll be in Mexico sometime in the near future before the before the world collapses. I'd like to make it out there. So
if Chatpile makes it to Mexico, that's a good sign that the world is not gonna end soon.
yeah, sure.
Well, see ya.
Yeah,
Have a
take care,
good night,
man.
man.